I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Hamas has decided to dissolve its administration in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli Prime Minister meets with U.S. President Donald Trump, and we'll reveal how Israeli technology is about to change the face of the meat industry and save the lives of millions of animals. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu is meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump today for the third time since Trump took office, and Iran is the main issue on the agenda. Netanyahu wants to scrap the highly controversial Iran nuclear deal, or at least make serious changes that will satisfy Israel. This all comes on the heels of reports from top Israeli intelligence that the United Nations has ignored intel on secret Iranian nuclear sites. Netanyahu is laying out a detailed case against Iran to explain how the nation is trying to establish a military presence on Israel's northern border. The Israeli leader is calling on world officials to change favorable policy towards the Persian state. At the same time, Israeli security officials are accusing the UN body in charge of ensuring Iran's compliance with the 2015 nuclear deal of ignoring crucial information it received detailing forbidden nuclear military research and development that's being carried out at several facilities across Iran. The officials have said that a, quote, Western entity shared the information with the IAEA, but that they decided not to investigate or carry out any inspections at the sites of the presumed forbidden activity. The news comes just weeks before Donald Trump's administration is due to decide whether or not Iran breached the 2015 nuclear deal. Many of Trump's critics are concerned Trump may decide to cancel the accord, and while the chief of the Israeli Mossad is supporting Netanyahu's hawkish approach to the entire affair, not all Israeli security officials are on board. Some are warning Israel not to push the U.S. into another Middle Eastern geopolitical conflict, especially after what took place when the U.S. tackled Iraq and the nation's weapons of mass destruction just over 10 years ago. Netanyahu will arrive at the UN tomorrow morning to listen to President Trump's speech and will then address the UN General Assembly in the afternoon himself. He'll be back in Israel for the Jewish New Year of Rosh Hashanah. All right, well, here to help us take a closer look at Prime Minister Netanyahu's UN General Assembly speech is retired Colonel Dr. Ephraim Kam, a senior research associate at the Israeli Institute for National Security Studies. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
So, beginning with the obvious, Netanyahu will be discussing redrawing or dissolving completely the Iran nuclear agreement with Donald Trump. Now, how possible is it that this Iran nuclear agreement will be dismantled?
Not now, at least. I don't think so, because at least two reasons. One, nobody can now cancel the agreement. United States, U.S. government is not alone. It has 5 partners, the other 5 governments which concluded this agreement. And all of them, all the other 5 are against any change in the agreement, and the abrogation of the agreement. They reject it altogether. Right. And for sure, Iran is rejecting this idea. So this is one reason. Second reason is that this is not the right time to do it, because for the time being, at this stage, the benefits of this agreement are overshadowing the disadvantages.
Interesting. It's interesting that you say that, but, Netanyahu has made this one of his, I would say his main goal in this discussion that he's having with Trump. Is he being heard at all? Is anything going to come out of what he is saying to Trump?
Again, I don't know, but I assume that if Netanyahu will suggest or will try to convince President Trump to cancel the agreement, I don't think that the president will agree to it. He cannot. And I think he spoke about it. He said he against the agreement, this is a bad agreement, and so on and so forth. But eventually, he has done nothing. And I don't think that after the meeting with Netanyahu, he's going to do it.
Now, with respect to pushing the United States to get more involved in what is happening with Iran, does it make sense? Is this the right timing? And also, should Netanyahu be pushing Trump into another Middle Eastern conflict, given what happened back when the U.S. went into Iraq?
Correctly. I don't think he wants to do it anyway. And I don't think that he's going to be blamed for any attempt to push the United States for any move which might be against the American interests, like Iraq in the past. He won't do it. What they can do is to agree on some points and perhaps some roadmap for the future. They can agree that Iran is a major threat for the United States, for Israel, for the Middle East, for the allies of the United States. They will agree about that. Mm-hmm. They will say that the threat is not emanating only from the nuclear issue, but also for other issues like the Iranian behavior in the Middle East, the penetration to other countries, the Iranian involvement in the Syrian crisis, and so on and so forth. They will agree. This is not a problem. The question is practically what can be done. And right. For the time being, I think not too much. They have to think about the future, not at this stage.
It's interesting that you say that, especially on the heels of everything that is happening with North Korea. You would think there would be more of a push to kind of figure out how to somehow amend this agreement to deal with some of the holes. But, you know, let's move on to Jordan. King Abdullah II is demanding a result in the embassy murder probe. And do you think he's going to get it? Is there a likelihood that this is something that is going to be taken care of in the near future?
Regarding the American embassy in Jordan? I don't think so. Again, probably President Trump will not back from his former promise. He will still speak about that this should be done, but he's not going to do it now because many players are against this move. For the time being, he'll say, okay, we'll do it when the time comes, and he wants some achievement, I think, in the Israeli-Palestinian issue that could justify this move. Again,
is it worth it for Israel, though, to be, you know, I mean, the relationship with Jordan is an important one, especially in this region. Is it worth it for Israel to be kind of playing these games and not...
I would say no, and I think this might be one of the reasons why I don't think that Netanyahu will try to push President Trump to do it now. In the future, the issue will stay on the table for some time in the future, when time comes, not at this stage.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we'll have you back again soon.
Thank you very much.
All right, now here is some breaking news. Hamas has actually agreed to dissolve its administration in Gaza in order to create a Palestinian unity government with the Palestinian Authority's Fatah party. This is a major step for the future of the Gazan people because for the last decade, Hamas and the Palestinian Authority have been battling for control of the Gaza Strip. Well, Hamas seized control of the coastal enclave in 2007 and has been running the territory of 2 million people ever since. Now, Hamas has agreed to hold general elections to end the long-running feud with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and his party.
الآن حماس اتخذت قرار جريء وجدي ووطني بحل اللجنة الإدارية، لكن كيف الآن تتعامل حركة فتح ورئيس السلطة محمود عباس مع هذا الطرح ومع هذا الجهد المصري؟ نعتقد أن أبو مازن وفتح أمام اختبار جديد في التعاطي مع الجهد المصري وفي التعاطي مع تلبية طموحات شعبنا الفلسطيني في إيجاد حالة وطنية فلسطينية موحدة كي نتفرغ لمواجهة كافة التحديات على رأسها مواجهة الاحتلال والاستيطان. حركة حماس جاهزة كي تذلل كافة العقبات أمام هذا الجهد المصري وأمام تحقيق طموحات شعبنا في الوحدة والمصالحة.
هذا التوافق أيضا نحن نرحب به لأننا لا نريد أن يبقى بالفعل لأي عربي أو لأي جهة دولية أن تشير بالبنان إلى أننا العقبة في طريق قبول الشعب الفلسطيني وقراراته على كل الصعد نتيجة القسمة أو نتيجة أننا السبب. نحن نتمنى أن نكون المدرسة التي يتعلم بها العالم لأنه قضية عادلة، شعب عظيم ويحتاج إلى قيادة ترقى إلى مستوى المسؤولية وتنسجم مع حس الناس.
Well, that's quite the change of heart coming from both sides because for the last year, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has been pressuring Hamas to relinquish control of Gaza by cutting electricity payments for the enclave. This means that Gazan civilians have been living with electricity for only around 4 hours a day. So it's no surprise that many are tired of the politics. There have already been several attempts since 2011 to reconcile the two Palestinian movements. Back in 2014, Hamas and Fatah agreed to form a national reconciliation administration, but just couldn't agree on the details. It looks like both sides are beginning to understand, however, that without a unity government, the future of the Palestinian people won't be very bright. All right, well, the upcoming referendum to discuss the creation of a Kurdish nation in present-day Iraq is quickly approaching, and the Vice President of Iraq is now warning the world that his country will not tolerate the creation of what he is calling a so-called second Israel. Naudi al-Maliki says the leaders of autonomous Iraqi Kurdistan must call off the referendum because it, quote, does not serve the general interests of the Iraqi people or even the Kurds. The Iraqi Vice President is likening the establishment of an independent Kurdish state to that of Israel and says a country set up on a religious or ethnic base is unacceptable. Well, Israel doesn't seem to be on board with his statements. The Jewish nation has come out as the only country to support the planned Kurdish independence referendum. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his country rejects terror in any form, but the Kurdish people have the legitimate right to attain a state of their own. Turkish media has been abuzz with reports that Jerusalem even cut a secret deal with the Kurdish leader Masoud Barzani to have the descendants of Kurdish Jews in Israel repatriated to Kurdistan after the referendum. The Jewish presence in Mesopotamia dates back to 586 BCE. Today, almost 200,000 Kurdish Jews are believed to be living in Israel. Well, it's been just a week since the Israeli High Court ruled that a military exemption law for the ultra-Orthodox was discriminatory and unconstitutional. This week, the effects of that decision are already painfully visible. ILTV's Aaron Porras has more on the story. Now, Aaron, what happened?
So yesterday we could see ultra-Orthodox Jews rioting, demonstrating, and fighting with police and security services in the Mea Shearim neighborhood of Jerusalem. Now,
how did these clashes end up erupting?
Well, as you said, after last week, after already having invalidated the military exemptions for the Haredi and the ultra-Orthodox community, what you had was an already inflamed emotional tension.
Tensions were already very high.
Very, very high. And then add to that the fact that security services came into Mea Shearim to arrest a draft dodger. And not just any draft dodger, but the relative of a well-known rabbi in the community who is very outspoken against drafts. So it was...
That's a recipe for disaster.
It really, really was, and I'll tell you the rest of my,
let's
report.
Check it out.
During the clashes, police used water cannons and other crowd dispersal methods to spread out the several hundred ultra-Orthodox Jews who had gathered, blocking roads and throwing rocks at the officers. In the wake of the clashes, 9 had been arrested and at least 3 were hospitalized, but reports of abuses and excessive force have already caused an investigation to be launched. Even Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan spoke heavily critically about the actions he saw in videos released from the protests, saying, quote, "Based on the pictures at least, it seems that police lost control and acted with unreasonable force. The police did the right thing by announcing that it had given matters over to the investigations department since it went beyond its internal disciplinary purview, but harsh violence was also used against officers. The material will be presented and it includes stone throwing and officers injured. Again, though, it doesn't justify beating a demonstrator who has already been cleared and is lying on the ground." End quote.
Well, the Israeli film Foxtrot took home the Silver Lion at the Venice Film Festival earlier this month, eliciting cheers from just about everyone in Israel. Well, everyone, that is, except Culture Minister Miri Regev. The Likud Knesset member has denounced the film as a defamation of the state of Israel. Criticism which has just gotten her officially uninvited from this year's Ophir Awards, which are basically the Oscars of Israel. Well, the criticism over Foxtrot, a film which Regev admits she hasn't seen, isn't her first brush with controversy in the film community. Regev infamously stormed out of last year's Ophir Awards ceremony when the poem of the Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish was recited. Darwish was an ultra-nationalist member of the Palestine Liberation Organization, and Regev said that she just didn't have the patience to listen to Darwish or anyone who, quote, wants to destroy me or my country. Minister Regev is known for having slammed films she feels unfairly criticize Israel and has made it her mission to only support art institutions that are so-called loyal to the state and portray Israel in its best light. Clearly, the Ophir Academy is firing back at what they believe to be her attempts to muzzle art and free speech by uninviting her from this year's Ophir Awards. The head of the Ophir Committee claims the decision is meant to depoliticize the event by removing controversy from the show, where Foxtrot is expected to sweep the top awards. It looks like Regev isn't taking the news lightly, though. In response to the diss, the culture minister has just pledged new laws to dramatically change the way the state finances films. This is a threat that clearly takes dead aim at films like Foxtrot, which received partial funding from the Israeli Film Fund. President Reuven, however, has different feelings on the matter, even with films that do criticize the country. In general, I'm a great fan of Israeli cinema, which is a symbol of freedom of expression and the strength of Israeli democracy. President Rivlin says he's excited to watch Foxtrot and plans on watching it as soon as it opens in theaters. All right, now here's some groundbreaking news for animal activists and meat lovers alike. The Chinese government is now making a massive investment in Israeli technology companies that are developing laboratory-grown meat. Yes, that's right, meat that tastes like meat but doesn't require killing an animal. For those of you who still can't believe that this is a real thing, get this. China has just signed a whopping $300 million deal with the Israeli companies Supermeat, Future Meat Technologies, and Meat the Future. The move is meant to help the Asian giant reduce the amount of pollution and harmful emissions caused by the meat production industry. You may not know it, but a staggering 51% of global greenhouse gas emissions are actually caused by animal agriculture. But forget the issue of pollution. Several studies have also shown that lab-grown meat is much more healthy for you and is significantly cheaper. Not bad, right? Researchers have suggested that in 10 to 20 years, lab-grown meat will be available to consumers all over the world. This latest deal between China and Israel has some major business implications as well, since China spent more than $10 billion on importing meat last year. And it's no surprise that the move is being praised by environmentalists and animal rights groups who are hoping that there could be a future where animal slaughterhouses are a thing of the past. 20 years ago, a small but determined group set out to make serving in the Israeli Defense Forces a little bit easier by sending pizzas to soldiers on guard at checkpoints. Now, fast forward to today, and this group, now a major non-profit organization, does way more for our military than just feed them. Well, joining me today in the studio to tell us how we can help as well is David Landau, the founder of Standing Together, and Ali Fould, the assistant director of Standing Together and an Israeli advocate. All right, well, thank you both so much for coming in. Now, tell us a little bit about this organization. What do you guys do? What's your mission?
Well, 50 years ago, I came to Israel as a volunteer during the Six-Day War. And I was so taken by seeing people on street corners setting up little tables with drinks and sandwiches, and soldiers coming back and forth wherever they're going and just taking something to eat because they're rushing to another base, to go to the front, to the battle lines. And I was so moved by this. When I came in Aliyah 40 years ago, I remembered this feeling about the soldiers needing that little extra care, support, letting them know that people care about them. And
this is when pizza came into the picture, right?
Right. So I was leaving Rachel's tomb one evening, and I see a young soldier standing there with his gun, and he looked really scared. Alone, no one else with him, no fences, no walls around him, just standing there with his gun. And I really felt bad for him. I went out, I bought some pizza and drinks, I came back, I said, "This is for you." He says, "Why?" I said, "I want to thank you for what you're doing." He said, "I'm doing my job." And that was his answer. He looked at it, he's doing his job. But he realized that people care about him. And that's how Standing Together started.
So at first you started with handing out pizzas, right, to these soldiers, but then it kind of morphed into something a lot larger. Tell us kind of what is the work that you guys are doing now?
Well, we originally started with traveling around with a little red bag of like 4 or 5 pizzas, whatever, and giving them out. And then we found that people wanted more. They wanted more conversation. They wanted to know that people really cared about them. So someone donated a truck to us that people were able to stop by the truck, open up the trailer that we have, put the pizza up, and get it hot. The red bags never worked out well. And we began to serve drinks and ice cream. And then they wanted more. They wanted to know that people were more interested in them, just not handing a big pizza and saying goodbye. So we began to make sandwiches, meat sandwiches. We had ice cream sodas, ice cream.
Now, at that point, I mean, you're kind of just dealing with every soldier. There wasn't necessarily a specific focus on people who are coming from perhaps poorer backgrounds, people whose parents are living abroad and might be, you know, visiting, or not visiting soldiers,
Lone soldiers.
Lone soldiers, there's the word. But now it's extended, and now you really are focusing on helping those in need as well, right? Maybe Ari, you can tell us a
I'll
little
just tell
bit
you a
about
little
that.
bit. Is that in 2006, my unit was in Lebanon, and we came back exhausted, broken a little bit also emotionally, and we crossed over the border. Nobody came up to the border. And this trailer comes in right here. This is what it looked like. It's exactly this trailer. Drove up to the border, opens up the back, and starts giving us everything from new clothes to ice cream. We had pancakes, baked on the truck fresh. It really put all our motivation back in a fraction of a second. So our motto is wherever IDF soldiers are, we'll be there for them.
Beautiful. And now Rosh Hashanah is coming up, right? So this is the Jewish New Year. It's a very big holiday. Not every soldier has their parents here in the country. Not every soldier can necessarily afford to kind of have an extravagant big meal. So what are you guys doing?
So, I don't know if you saw the news the last couple of days. There were articles about soldiers who are not going home because they want to be a financial burden on their families.
Okay.
There are soldiers who are forced out of their units because they have to go work. He said this can't happen. The men and women who are defending Israel cannot be suffering on the New Year. So what we did was, together with the army, we bought cards where the families can go purchase their own food and goods for Rosh Hashanah and don't have to worry about their financial situation. So right now our goal is 1,000 families right now, and each card it's $70 per card. That's all it is. So the soldiers can go home and enjoy the holidays, with their families.
Wow. So no, I guess my final question for you guys is for those people who are watching us who want to help, what can they do? How are we able to kind of donate?
Well, they can go onto our website. The soldiers work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our website is 24/7 IDF. It's a simple
247idf.com?
It's www.247idf.org.
.org. Okay, great.
Now, another thing is that the commanders are like fathers to these soldiers. We get calls from the commanders that we have soldiers in our group which have no money. They don't have enough money for food for Shabbat, for the Sabbath, for the holidays. Many of these soldiers, lone soldiers, haven't seen their parents in a year or 2 years sometimes. So we raise money to bring their parents to Israel. So
wow, so there's a lot of different ways in which you can donate. I mean, whether it's, like you said, money, goods as well, I'm assuming.
We have.
And the final thing you said was these cards for Rosh Hashanah, right? $70 cards, and that will help contribute to a soldier's meal.
It's family. It gives family a way to celebrate
Beautiful.
the New Year.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for coming in. You are doing amazing, amazing work, and we're excited to see where it goes from here, and we hope that our viewers are paying attention and make a donation. All right, Israel will be hosting another major sporting event next year, and this time it's not the Eurobasket. The prestigious cycling race Giro d'Italia will be kicking off in the Holy Land. This is some great news for Israeli cycling fans since the Giro d'Italia is one of the top 3 cycling competitions in the world. This will mark the first time the race will be held outside of Europe in its 109-year history. Italian and Israeli organizers of the race are expected to announce the details of the exact route in Jerusalem this week, along with cycling legend Alberto Contador. In addition to being viewed by millions all over the world, thousands of tourists are expected to arrive in Israel to watch their favorite cyclists. And get this, the race is expected to be the biggest sporting event ever held in Israel.
Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Your name is perhaps one of the biggest parts of your identity. So today's word is Shem, which means name in Hebrew. They say you should always end the Shem of your child with a vowel so that when you yell, the name will carry. I can tell you guys from personal experience that my Shem, Natasha, has certainly been an effective one for my parents. I personally love to learn the history behind why people have their Shemot, or names, because it often gives insight into their family past, especially here in Israel, where there are so many people from so many different backgrounds. Now, on a more serious note, though, while a person's Shem is definitely a big part of themselves, a name is just a name, and it doesn't always tell the full story. But for some, their Shem is something to live up to. Take the famed performer Madonna as an example. She says with her Shem, there was no way she wasn't going to end up becoming a diva or a nun. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight we'll have clear skies and a slight rise in temperatures. The low should be around 72 or 22 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow you can expect little to no change in daily temperatures with clear sunny skies and a high of 86 or 30 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.53 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.